All right, I believe we are live. Welcome, peeps, to the stream. I'm Dragon Skies. I'm a game developer who's currently working on a RPG game called The Game's Afoot, and today we are planning to do some cutscene work and possibly some decoration inside of the manor. As soon as I can pull up the chat, because that's slightly important when you're streaming, one might argue. But yeah, what we usually do here is we just tend to hang out, chat, have some fun, waste some time, that kind of stuff. Um, yeah, not much else to it. Now, best way to find the chat here. I'm gonna have to make this a faster process in the future when it comes to keeping everything just prepared from the beginning. I'm doing a lot better with it. When it comes to development here, I've done a lot of stuff before the stream to make it so it isn't just me trying to figure it out. Because honestly, there's nothing that's more annoying than when I start halfway through only to reveal that my what's the best way to put it? It's bad when I start halfway through and then realize that I'm just gonna have to piece everything back together afterwards. So I'm gonna go ahead and get started on some cutscene design. So in the time that I've been off camera, right, not working on all of this stuff, I've done a lot of work on a basic cutscene framework and just coming over here into this new room, we can seize camera control, which is huge. We could start dialogue. We could return the camera after dialogue, and it doesn't interrupt anything, which is hugely important. So, just thinking about where to take that, we're going to need to do a couple of cutscenes in the intro area. I think the first one is just going to be at the very start of the outside of the manor, because that's just going to be like the kind of grand reveal thing that most games do, with like the look at this area, so interesting. So I don't know, let's go ahead and get onto that. So I'm going to go into a new scene here, and we're going to jump outside of our manor. That should be world 0. And just like thinking about how we want this to look, I'm not sure. I know for sure that we're going to want to have kind of like the player walk up, get close, and then like a zoom out on the manor with a little bit of dialogue from Nostal to kind of like emphasize that not everyone is very comfortable with it, with exploring the manor per se. I think that Nostal's whole thing is just going to be like, you don't actually plan to go into there, right? People say it's cursed, kind of a thing. And so that's going to require a little bit of dialogue, and also I think like camera control is the other big thing. So how we've done this so far, let's see here. I'm just thinking through how we want to approach this. The first thing that we're going to want to do is create a game state for the actual cutscene. And this cutscene, we'll just call it the grand reveal cutscene. Every single one of these cutscenes needed a cutscene game state, I believe. Yeah. I'm a little confused as to why it's not giving me the option to create a timeline there, but we'll get a timeline director or a playable director. And then we're going to want to create a playable asset for this cutscene. But yeah, I don't think that the cutscenes have to be anything too complicated, really. In fact, I think they should be really simple, but they're kind of necessary to an extent to establish the context of the game, I guess. So we're just going to name this Manor Reveal. That clipping is not correct. Aye. Stream widgets, man. Anyway, so when it comes to the cutscene, we're going to add this into the grand reveal cutscene, Manor Reveal. When it comes to Play on Awake, I don't think I want to. I want to play it as the player approaches the manor. And this is kind of going to replace the camera zoom zone here. Instead of it being a zoom zone, we're actually going to change it into a cutscene zone. Switch to game state on enter. That's what we're looking for. And then we're going to start the cutscene there once we arrive. Cool. So what else are we going to do there? I think, let's see. The next thing that we're going to want to do is we're going to want to kind of like have it pan out to the manor and then have Nostout start talking. So let's go ahead and edit the timeline. So that's going to be the grand reveal cutscene. So when we start this cutscene, just from the very beginning, the first thing that we're going to want to do is we're going to want to adjust the camera. So we're going to accomplish that through the camera target. And then we're going to accomplish that through the camera zoom manager, wherever that is. Yeah, it's right there. Cool. All right, next we're going to want to change a couple of things here. The first thing is very simple, actually. It's just the position of the camera target. We're going to want it to be at basically centered. Well, actually a little bit higher than the manor. When it comes to the game camera, wait, hold on. Did it register the new position? There we go. And then when it comes to the camera target, we're also going to want to make it so that the zoom kind of adjusts, and we're also going to reduce the speed. We're going to set this to 0.2 and enable the new speed. So apparently we could only do a couple of animations at a time. So I'm going to create another animation track for our camera. And this one, as of right now, is responsible for setting up the camera's position. Let's just take a look at the timeline. So for the grand reveal cutscene, at this point, the camera is... I'm going to create a second inspector for this. Man, dude, I'm really excited to move past all of this stuff when it comes to game dev. Like, all the heady stuff. It's a necessary thing, but, like, it's more fun to create content after setting up the framework. And I did a lot of the framework stuff before now, but honestly, like, I feel like it's kind of just a necessary evil at this point, more than anything else. To have to set up all of this stuff in the background. Because it's not really as fun or relevant, I would say, as like the art, as the dialogue, as the characters, as the story. So, I don't know. So, looking into our timeline, grand reveal cutscene, we're going to want to anchor this. And then we're looking at the game camera. So, as of right now, it alters the speed. Okay, yeah, no, that stream element is really bothering me for some reason. I'll test that some other time. The important thing is we're giving credit to the creators of these songs. Last stream it was a little awkward since it wasn't really working. I didn't like it because I mean these are really cool creators. I love this music because it reminds me of my favorite games and it kind of inspires me when I'm working. So like I'm not trying to like make it so they don't get credited. And that's not even like a legal thing. It's just more like they're cool creators, you know? I don't know. So, taking a look at this. As of right now, the game camera target focuses on the manor. The game camera kind of like sets the speed for everything. I also think that we're going to need to handle the zoom separately. So we're going to do that. New size enabled. We're going to add that and set the new size to like 12. And I'm a little confused as to the notation. So I'm just going to look at this and see if it works, man. That's what... So what happened? It focused on the manner, so clearly the camera target is working. This game camera, on the other hand, it's not really doing what we want. What happens if I change the speed to be much higher? Okay, so apparently a higher speed actually helps it to go slower. That's good to know. I'm going to get rid of this track since I'm realizing I don't need multiple. So a 2.5 is a good adjustment speed. And with this track, we're also going to enable a new size. And we're going to, do we want to change the altered zoom? Let's try that. So the zoom is working perfectly. Not the zoom, the positions. Because the camera has two things. It has like how large it is and also what position it is that I have to worry about. So we're gonna double check this. Looking at the recording, it looks like the altered zoom might not be what we're trying to do. Let's do target 12. Okay, so I think that the problem is something a little less obvious then. Because I think it might be the adjustment speed, because 0 means that it doesn't expand at all, maybe? Let's change it to 0.05 and set our altered zoom to 12. And when it comes to the animation, let's see. Let's try this. If this works, it should kind of like zoom out over the manner. Kind of gives us like a bird's eye view. I like that. But it also is too fast. Let's fix that. What happens if I change the speed to 1? Yeah, this manner is kind of like a weird thing. In the game, it represents kind of a turning point where the characters realize that they're not really in their own world anymore, I guess. That they're kind of, the rules are changing from typical detective work to something new. And I want to do everything possible to make the player feel a little bit uncomfortable, but at the same time, like, kind of curious. Because that's kind of the entire point of this scene. Man, okay. But I'm still concerned because I'm not seeing any easy ways to fix the adjustment speed here. What happens if I set it to 200 or something? Okay, then it becomes immediate. Ooh, Stardew Valley. I like this song. How about 0.0001? 1e to the negative. But what would that work? It is ever so slightly expanding. That's not what I want, though. We are getting closer. So let's set the adjustment speed here to like 0.01. Let's see if that works. Point 0.01 is really comfortable, but it's still quick for what I'm looking for. So let's do 0.5. That is totally the incorrect thing to edit. Okay. 0.005. There we go. That's what we're looking for. Okay, and now we're going to re-trigger the cutscene. That's okay. I still want it to be a little bit slower. This is kind of getting into the fun stuff. Now that I've figured out how to actually make it work, we could just make it however we want. And that's just the appeal of Unity, I think. I mean, other platforms also do this, but like just the playability of Unity, I guess I really like it. So over this reveal, at one point we want to have a signal track. And we're going to use a signal receiver from the cutscene itself. I'm going to add a reaction, start dialogue. When this signal is given, which we're going to add a signal emitter, the cutscene's basically going to say, now's the time to start the dialogue. So let's see here. That's going to be right here. We're going to emit it once, only once. And this is going to trigger a dialogue sequence. And of course, we're going to like actually have to write what's going to be said. That should be pretty simple. Let's go into the dialogue. The manner outside of manner. And then we're going to create a dialogue sequence for that. And that's going to be here. And the general vibe is nostal monologue. It's that the character is uncomfortable with this. Here's what I'm imagining. He would say something like, someplace to hide the crown jewels of England or something. I don't know, because I feel like that he is mistrustful of this location. Some place to hide the crown jewels. But I think it's a jewel singular because the context of the game. Seems like this place has been abandoned for years. But I also feel like he wouldn't have this kind of tone. Frankly, he would be a little more, like, scared. Out of all the places, hide a jewel. Why did insert villain name here? I'm just gonna be lazy here. Out of all the places to hide a jewel, why did insert villain name here have to choose this deplorable place? Honestly, player. Hence, we just turn back. Okay, I don't think he would suggest it this soon. This doesn't seem like his tone. He's a coward, but also a journalist. So you're in for it now. Locals say I used to think that was hogwash, but surely everything will be okay, right, Holmes? Or whatever the player names their character. By evil ghosts. Oh, hogwash. Right? Hmm. Yeah, we'll just play this for now and throw that into our timeline. And then we're going to do Nostal Monologue 1. Cool. Okay, let's see if it works. Nothing here. Okay, that's a little bit of a concern. Is it just not triggering? Let's see. Console? I don't see why it wouldn't be working, which is a little bit concerning because any problem is fine as long as it's understandable, I guess. Hmm. Yeah, I'm not sure why it's not playing the dialogue here. Let's double check everything. So within the cutscene game state, we have our stop and track and start dialogue. Everything should be set there. Let's take a look at the camera zoom zone, cutscene zone. We should rename it too. It starts the grand reveal cutscene. It has a rigid body and a box collider. Everything's set there. I think another thing that we should do is we should make sure that the cutscene can't re-trigger. I'm realizing, but that's for once we actually have it working. So the cutscene started correctly. I'm just not sure why it's having issues. Let's see. What's the problem here? No signal assigned. I don't know exactly what that's supposed to mean because we do have a signal. Let's delete this. Bit signal. Start dialogue. Emit once. Okay, I think that fixes it. Let's try it. And then it will focus back on them. And then after it focuses back on them, kind of like resetting everything, then Nostal will like finish his thought by saying, let's just get out of here, basically. Let's just get the blasted gem and get out of here. Yeah. And then with the game camera, we're also going to set the stuff here so it kind of like goes back into a reasonable size. 0.6, and then we'll do 0.01. Yeah, that should work. And at this point, we're also going to set the speed to, well, disable the altered speed, really. Disable the new size. Let's see what this does. So if we walk up here, it went back. That is a huge problem. Okay. So ideally what happens when the signal goes off is immediately we see the cutscene pause itself. So what I could see this being a problem where I just have to move something over the and assume that we need a couple of frames. Probably. Let's take a look at the animation here. Game camera. Let's move this over a few frames. 1, 2, 3. And do the same thing here. Edit an animation window. And then we're going to move all of this stuff over by 3. Okay. Save. And let's try this. So problem is that it's not freezing the way we want it to. I'm a little concerned. I'm really concerned because this should have completely stopped the cutscene. Let's just, okay, I think let's try and cater to it a little bit. Move all this stuff way back. If it works, great. If it doesn't work, I might have to fix some stuff, which would be unfortunate because I was wanting to have all the difficult stuff done right now so I could just like get into the actual creation of a cutscene. But throw this here. Let's see if this works, guys. Hi, the cat. No worries. Good to have you on stream for even a brief period of time. Oh, that is so weird. Okay, so unfortunately the cutscene is acting up. watch me improve my video quality on this side so I can read chat messages. I still think my selfish wants that the streams should be like 3 hours later. I mean, ideally, I want to make the streams match everyone's schedules, but I unfortunately have a life outside of game design, so I don't know. I mean, in an ideal world, I would probably be streaming a lot later, but just hasn't worked out as of right now. It's not selfish, though, I don't think. I enjoy having for whenever you can drop by. Although you're not missing very much, to be fair. We're seeing a lot of problems with our cutscenes. A lot of problems. It's kind of worrisome, actually. Because my family devotions end around 9, and that's when I can usually electronic. So what are we doing again? So right now we're working on cutscenes, which is pretty simple. It's just like I want to be able to create cutscenes where you could walk up to somewhere and it will trigger kind of a chain reaction where we could change the camera a little bit, we can change the dialogue a little bit, and this is kind of what we have going so far. We have Nostal talking about how he thinks that the place is haunted, and then it goes right back to the player, which, no, it's not actually haunted. It's just a lot of crazy things happening on the inside, but like not haunted technically, but not there's a moose in there, so I guess that kind of qualifies. But yeah, no, there is a problem though because the zooming doesn't want to stop zooming. It's just too fast for that. This camera is very gimmicky, so ideally we want it to zoom out to the entire house, I guess. But it starts the dialogue when it's like halfway zoomed out, which is a problem because I want to be able to show the entire manor and make people be like, whoa! So I don't know. I'm not exactly sure what's up with that, but the vision is here. The vision is here. So walking up here, man, I don't know why Unity doesn't want to cooperate here, guys. Just put a ghost chilling in there. Honestly, that could be really funny, just like have a non-enemy NPC in there. And that's just the most normal thing that you encounter inside of the manor. Like, have it be the exception to the crazy rule rather than the reason why this manor is crazy. That could be really funny, actually. I might have to add that. I'm gonna tell Musical Papyrus about that. That'll be funny. Here, I have an idea. I think I know what the problem is. Guys, I think I know what the problem is. The camera's about to work. Let's go, let's go. Come on. Okay. Just put a ghost chilling in there in the out of bounds area. That could be funny too. I don't know, because there we go. There we go. We got it to work. We got it to work. Okay. So this will be the intro cutscene, sort of, where you're walking up to the manor and you get kind of like a bird's eye view, and Nostad starts talking about like how the locals think that it's a haunted place or whatever, which it really isn't, but and then afterwards it returns control to the player and you can kind of just like walk through the doors and take a look at everything. Okay, we're just gonna have to add a couple of things here, but yeah, I'm so excited though. All this technical stuff, when I talk about a lot of stuff that no one on my stream understands, and it's kind of annoying to me because I would rather talk about fun stuff like mooses and NPCs and enemies and whatever. I'm excited though because once we get all of this gimmicky stuff figured out, it could just be straight up just shenanigans. Similar to the So Sorry sign in MTT Resort. So Sorry? I remember the enemy. I don't think I've ever encountered him, though. I don't fully get the reference, because I've never had that fun value before. Yeah, I don't know. So we're going to change a couple of things with this. We're going to change the camera's total zoom. Man. Edit an animation window, and then we're going to want to highlight all of this and change the camera zoom to something higher. I've seen the fight with So Sorry. I've never encountered him, though. Never. Which is wild, because I'm an Undertale fan, you know? So surely I've encountered all of the enemies. Surely I've done all the routes. But I've only ever done True Pacifist with, like, a very small fun value. I only know about the fun values because I have friends who are total fanatics. So Sorry isn't a fun... You mean I don't have an excuse for missing out on it? Oh, no. Oh, no. Chat, we have to do an Undertale playthrough now. I need to find this enemy. Honestly, maybe one of these. I recently restarted my brother, right? He was playing Undertale on my PC, and he was going true genocide. And I had to stop him so he wouldn't ruin my save files. And so I'm restarting and trying to make it up by doing a true pacifist. I don't know. And it's been going pretty good. It's like a nostalgia rush, and something that blew me away is just how fun and simple the game is. It's not trying to be all complicated and crazy. It's just straight up that Toby was having a good time with it, you know? And there was just like so many fun details, and it's just charming. I like it. I don't know. So the final thing that we have to do, I think that after Nostal says this thing, the cutscene is over. The final thing we have to do is return player control. I've only done True Pacifist and got the Sans call about my fridge. What? A fridge? What? I'm confused. What? This is a bit of Undertale lore that I've never heard about. Man, I am gonna say, let's not go too heavy into spoilers at this point, just because, I mean, if we have anyone new here who actually might be into it, I don't know. Gotta be careful. Gotta be careful with that, you know? Otherwise, I might get demonetized. Not really. I don't think anyone would care if I was spoiling Undertale on a stream, except for the people who play Undertale. But yeah, no, I've never gotten the Sans encounter about the fridge. No. Dude, Undertale has so many nooks and crannies that I just haven't explored. Because the thing about the game is you play it your way. And it's like, I don't know. I think that's part of what makes it so cool. I guess. Just how it does, how everyone plays it differently, how everyone finds different things in it. Just how there's so much cool stuff to that. But yeah. So I'm going to go ahead and do a little bit of background research here. We got to make it so that the cutscene relinquishes control. So how to tell if timeline is finished. Community. Playing. Okay. Hmm. Yeah, okay, we're just gonna do this in the way that I kind of know how to do. The fridge is a fun value thing. Yeah, no, I'm not surprised. I don't know. I know that a lot of the gastro encounters are fun valued. I know that like I don't know if the wrong number song is a uh sorry. I know that the wrong number song might also be fun valued. I don't know. Also, how are you liking UTR? UTR. Hold on, UTR. That's the comic that you're writing, right? So I've been keeping up with that on pixel art for a while now. It's pretty. I really like it. It's all wholesome and fun, and it kind of has a narrative of Flowey that I really like. I think like a lot of people see a lot of different things in the Undertale cast and whatever, but just the idea that Flowey had a happy ending after Pacifist kind of makes me happy. Without major spoilers, just because I don't know, because the alternative is just that he never really gets that redemption arc, and that he never really gets to be a kid again, and it's like I don't know. I like the interpretation where the human and Flowey get a family again afterwards a lot more. I it's just happy. I don't know. It's just happy. I really like it. So at the very end of the cutscene, we're gonna fire off one last signal. We're gonna add signal emitter. And we're going to create a new signal. And this new signal is going to basically tell the cutscene that the cutscene is over. Yeah. Yes, I love him. No kidding, dude. I cried at the end of the True Pacifist Rue. I was like emotionally overwhelmed by a pixelated game, and I was like not ashamed to admit it. It was so good. Oh my gosh. And I still really, oh, I always liked Flowey. I don't know. It was weird because, he's evil, right? Like, that's a man. At least throughout most of Undertale, he's evil. But, like, why am I talking spoilers in a public stream? What am I doing? The point is, where most people see, like, Azrael and Flowey to be, like, just overpowered weirdos or whatever, I kind of, like, I'm happy to think that they have a happy ending. I'm of the belief that he becomes good after a true pacifist. I really hope so. I always have an optimistic view on. I even have like an optimistic view on Chris in like Deltarune. Um, so spoilers ahead, guys. If you're watching the stream for game development and I'm talking about Deltarune spoilers, just be ready for that, please. You can mute me and just watch the game development. I'm going to be talking about spoilers, major spoilers. Uh, well, I think like in case you're wondering, we'll have a whole lot of Undertale Yellow stuff. Okay, got to go. All right, well, see you, the cat. Good to have you. And I guess I won't be diving into Deltarune spoilers. Probably good, actually. But yeah, good to have you. New prototype hopefully out soon. God bless. Have a good day. Cool. And now let's get into it. Once we finish the cutscene, public void, end cutscene. We're gonna set the camera target manager dot current dot set camera mode. Follow. So it goes back to whatever it was before. Unless the overworld game state already does that, in which case we probably should not even worry about it. I feel like it should lock it. And we're going to set the camera mode to follow. We won't even need to worry about that. So, and now we're going to go into cutscene game state. And we don't even need to worry about this. When we end the cutscene, we do want to do a couple of things, though. So the camera target manager dot current dot, and then we're going to get rid of all of the overrides in case they exist. And this is just cleanup, so I don't have to do it inside of every single cutscene. And of course, we got to find the actual thing. Let's go over into Unity and take a look and see what the name of the actual override variable is. But yeah. Man, I'm really happy with how far this has come so far. I just hope that we'll be able to pull off some other cool stuff here. But we're going to go into the camera manager. Zoom manager. And we're going to set new size enabled to false. Man, okay, so that's weird. Now it's saying get set zoom active. We're going to actually take a look at the definition here and make sure it does what we want. So, oh, that just changes the new size to enabled. Okay, cool. And then we're going to set false then. And then camera speed of target manager dot current dot set. I feel like we should actually do speed manager dot current dot set. We're actually going to take a look and see what that says about changing stuff. Oh gosh, okay. Set camera speed override. That's what we're looking for. Speed override false. We're just going to go back to all the defaults, basically. Okay, let's see if this works. Oh, one more thing. We also want to switch to the new game state after the cutscene is over. And then we're going to call it a private game state. Next game state. All right, cool. And so after this cutscene is finished, we're going to want to actually go into the overworld state. So let's throw that into here. And let's see if it works. Actually, first off, I need to assign this. Cutscene end, we're going to do cutscene game state, end cutscene. Everything should be ready. Awesome. Okay, so now we're experiencing an issue. The camera isn't following the player anymore. Do I have control, though, is the question. If I move right. Player movement is still disabled. That's a problem. Game state manager. Let's see what the active game state is. Grand reveal cutscene. So the cutscene never ended, which is a problem. Let's fix that. Game state manager dot current dot change state, and then we're going to turn it into the new state, which should be next game state. Cool, that should fix everything. This is a gimmicky system. With my current Unity knowledge, I think that it's the best that I could have done here, but I'm going to have to be careful with it, I think, and I'm probably going to develop it over time to be better, to be honest, because there's a lot I could do to make it better. Okay, and then it goes back into here. The player gets the focus again. Of course, there's a problem where if I walk into a cutscene zone again, it actually re-triggers the cutscene. So we're going to have to fix that. Hopefully we will fix that. Okay, I like what I'm seeing so far, though. I really like what I'm seeing, to be honest. We have a lot of good stuff going with these cutscenes, at least. And I feel like these guys should all, like, jump. Kind of be like, what the heck? I don't know. Okay, getting back into it, though. So, one thing that I noticed about this cutscene, and this is going to be where the fun begins, kind of. I think that the dialogue starts too soon. Out of curiosity, what happens if I trigger both the dialogue and the end of the cutscene at the same time? Which one gets priority? Does one of them get priority? Or does it cause problems? It causes problems. Okay. Let's move. We're actually just gonna undo until it does what we want. Wait, what? Here's this, and let's try this. Somewhere down here in the middle. Okay. Getting into it. This will give more time for the camera to zoom onto the building. And I still feel like that's too soon. Maybe we could like play a whoosh sound effect as it zooms out. Honestly, I feel like that could be cool. All right. Yeah, I feel like that's good. I feel like that's good. And we have an entire manor to explore. So for this part of the video, I think I'm going to focus on decorating the area a little bit. Let me just open up the File Explorer Dropbox. Detective RPG. And we're going to look at buildings, interior assets, and we have a bunch of furniture that was recently dropped here by apps. So we're going to actually throw that into here. The manor. Folder. We're going to create a folder, call it furniture. And then inside of this folder, I'm going to just drag the furniture into here. And it always gives me problems whenever I'm messing with the art for some reason. But it's no big deal. Usually it balances itself out pretty quickly. Now let's go into the furniture here, and we're actually going to slice everything correctly. Which it looks like it's already actually cleanly sliced. That's nice. All right, and let's go ahead and also set some of these settings here so that the pixel art really goes through. Okay, now for some reason the floor is being weird. Let's fix that really quick. Yeah, there we go. Awesome. Now that that's taken care of, we're actually going to go into the manor and we're going to set some stuff up. So that's going to be inside of scenes, manor. And of course, we're going to like focus on the entryway first. And just looking at our stuff within the manor furniture. What's the kind of stuff you would see in like the entryway of a manor? Well, obviously a coat rack. And what else? Like, well, first off, let's actually like set up this coat rack so that way it actually looks like and functions like a coat rack. We'll give it a circle collider 2D. And we're actually going to resize it to fit within kind of a reasonable boundary. And when it comes to the coat rack's collider, we're actually going to copy the opponent and get rid of it because we want it to be kind of like squished. I don't even know if this is going to work. Circle collider. And we're going to want to rotate across the x-axis. Okay, so that is weird. It doesn't actually rotate. In that case, we're going to use a capsule collider because I feel like that'll be more straightforward. Rigid body 2D over here. We're going to use static collisions and create a capsule collider. Dude, just such a random thing. God, it's so good that even though I make crazy mistakes sometimes in like can be very responsible at times. I'm just so grateful that he gives me these chances to design games and to do the stuff I'm passionate about, you know? So random, but like the fact that I'm even able to comprehend what I'm doing is a gift from him. The fact that I was into it when I was like a little kid, that's a gift from him. And the fact that he still cares for me even though I do dumb things sometimes, like, I don't know. It's just he's cool. Is all I need to say. He's awesome. Let's see here. So we have our static collider. It's working. We have a capsule collider here. So this should be all ready. I feel like we're going to put a couch here and a rug here. The rug will go on the floor, and it will be like kind of overlaying the rest of the floor. All right, and now that I'm thinking about it, we need some cobwebs. So I'm going to go into conversation with the peeps. Can I get some random cobwebs for corners? You can use the interior of the building for reference. Cool. So at some point, we're going to add some cobwebs. And I'm going to place this rug kind of to be pixel perfect. And let's see what this looks like. Actually, we're going to move the camera target over here. And one thing that I want to do actually is we want to make it so our coat rack has like a shadow, because I feel like that would be really helpful for emphasizing space. So we're going to give it a second object, create empty shadow. And within the art, I actually have a tree shadow already, which we could just steal and use for this. So let's do that. We're going to use a sprite renderer and give it this tree shadow. Although I feel like that the tree shadow is a little large. And so is this. So we're going to go into Sprite. And we're going to just create a quick shadow. And this is going to be like kind of like a white circle. And I'm going to perfectly center it. And we're going to set it to about this size because I feel like that's about as large as the coat rack is. And then I'm going to use the flatten tool here to make it into like a floor shadow. And this is fairly even, so this should work. And I'm kind of also kind of like smooth out the edges so it looks rounder. And we're going to use symmetry for that. And then this preview will kind of show us what that's going to look like. And let's expand it downwards slightly. I think that works. So we're going to save this as a small shadow. And we're going to put that inside of... I'm going to create a new folder in the Detective RPG folder. New folder. Miscellaneous. Cool. And hopefully directly adding the shadow won't cause any problems as like an Sprite file and all. But yeah, we're just going to do it like that. And then I'm going to go into here and we're actually going to export it directly into there. I feel like export as small shadow.png, and we're going to want to actually like set the correct path. It's already set, so we'll do that. And then we're just going to open this in our game editor here, and we're going to take that shadow and we're going to put it underneath the coat hanger or the hat hanger. I think it's a hat hanger. Man, I'm too old. Or not too old, I'm too young. That's right. I'm too young. And now we're going to take this small shadow and set its settings really quick because we want to make sure that's taken care of. And we're going to apply all that. Okay, and we're going to take the coat rack shadow, apply this sprite. And it looks like it's about the right size. I mean, it's really small, but I'm fine with that. And then we're going to set it to floor 2 so that it's underneath the coat hanger in question. Now, game view, let's see what this looks like. I'm just going to increase the shadow. This feels really small, so we're just going to show and explore, and we're going to actually edit this in a sprite. And I'm just going to actually just 1, 2, and then spread. And also I'm going to erase the corners here. That should be good. It's going to look slightly different, but it's probably going to fit better, which is important. And then, of course, the floor decides to bug out for no reason. That's wild. We're going to... It still doesn't look large enough. So what are we going to do? We are going to expand it further. And I don't actually want symmetry right now. So we'll go 1 and 2 and expand. And I'm going to do the same thing that we did before and just trim the corners. That is concerning. Here we go. Cool. And now we go back into Unity and test this new shadow. Actually, it looks like we were editing the sprite file, so I'm just going to re-export and replace. That should be as effective. Oh my gosh. That's a lot of errors. Oh my gosh. I don't even know what to do with that, but we're just going to start the scene. Not even worry about it. It would be really funny if you could, like, interact with the couch and it would, like, blow out dust and make, like, a small sound out of it. I think that would be a really, like, good idea. Which, speaking of the couch, we're actually going to give it some colliders now. Box collider 2D. And this is just going to be the one that kind of is on the back of the couch. And I think that it should, to an extent, let you go over onto it. Rigid body 2D. And we're also going to make this static. Then we're going to create side colliders. And then we're going to use another box collider, which is kind of like going to be one of the arms of the couch because we don't want to be able to walk there. Correction, we don't want the player to be able to walk there. All right, and we're going to pull this down. And then we're going to duplicate this and just relocate it to this side. Okay. So whenever a player runs into one of these invisible green boxes, they're going to basically not be able to walk through it. So that's the only reason we're setting those up here. So as expected, it could be like kind of up in there, but not really. So although I do feel like just looking at how the colliders are functioning, it's a little weird. I almost feel like the couch should just be a full collider of its own because this interactability isn't doing it any favors, really. It's just weird more than anything else. So we're going to go ahead and expand a little bit this box. And now the player just isn't able to walk there, period. We don't need that unnecessary detail, really. And now just walking through, that's all taken care of. And now that we have a better carpet made than what I'm working with here, I'm just going to erase the carpet and we're going to just basically migrate to this new kind of carpet. But yeah. So what else do we want in this? So this house is pretty destroyed, I guess. It's not gonna look very good. So we don't have to worry about making it feel like it's just extremely high end or anything. In fact, like the worse the details, the probably the better. So let's actually go ahead and mess around a little bit with this. We could put a couch here. And of course, we're going to want to give it a rigid body 2D that is static. And then we're going to want to give it a box collider. So that way people can't walk on it, but they should be able to walk behind it slightly. And we're going to set its sorting layer to 1. Now, there is something I forgot to do. I need to make sure that the sorting masks are correct. But in this, with this chair, I don't think it really matters. And another thing I want to do is I want to create some empty space where the player can walk. Because that always feels good. And, okay, you know what? No, we're moving the player back to where he's supposed to be. Player? I'm going to put him here. And another detail that we need to focus on is that we need to make sure that the partner actually follows the player wherever he goes. But yeah, so the couch is... It works. Okay, so we have like kind of a couch area in the corner here, although I feel like it's a little bit weird placement because both of them should be kind of against the wall, so we're gonna move this back. And maybe to emphasize that this house is in disorder, we'll put like a chair over here, and it will also make this seem like the less interesting route. Maybe that's not the best way to put it, but like, you know, the less, I don't know. We're gonna do Polygon Collider 2D. Hmm. This chair is gonna kind of like have a little bit of a visual piece where it's like almost serving as a warning to the player, like, hi, this is not the recommended route. And of course, there's gonna be a secret or two there because you have to reward players who are curious enough to actually go looking for these things. But more than anything else, it's just here to deter players who are too interested in not deter play. I don't know what I'm trying to say here. The chair here is just an obstruction. It's meant to communicate obstruction more than anything else. Now we're going to give it a rigid body 2D, which is a fancy way of saying give it physics. Physics! And then we go into the game view, and I guess this looks fine. I want to actually move all of these over, though. I don't like the idea of them being up against the wall as much anymore. All right, that works. And I feel like maybe this will go here, default one. And we're gonna make this 6 negative 6.5, because we want everything to be pixel perfect as far as it's possible. And then negative 5. And negative 6.5. We're going to want to do this to a perfectly align, and then negative 4. And I feel like we're going to put an item on the counter that's like really old and not really worth anything, except for maybe like someone wants to sell it. And you know, actually, now that I think about it, we don't want this to be in such a perfect place. We're going to offset it, because offset communicates disorder, which is kind of what we're going for. Cool. Now this stool also needs a collider. Basically everything that needs a collider, to be honest. I'm going to throw this here. It's also static, so we're going to give it a circle collider 2D. I actually feel like capsule's a better idea. And then we're going to make it horizontal. And kind of like make it wrap around the legs a little bit. And extract a little bit more. Okay. Save it. Man, I really want to work on my stream interfaces some more soon. Dude, like, stream interfaces are so cool, and I've seen it done so well in so many different places, but like, my simple setup, it's done everything that I've needed, but I'm kind of excited about the idea of like working on improving on it even more, I guess. So let's try interacting with these things. So first noticeable issue, the chair does not make sense. Neither does the table. Nothing is interacting correctly with sorting order except for the chair here. All right, so the chair, we're going to go ahead and set it on layer 1. And something I forgot to do for all of these, we're going to, for every single one of these, basically, I want to set the pivot to the bottom. And we're going to slice that. For this guy, we actually want to change the pivot a little bit so that's higher up and apply that. Cool. That should work. Now, if I throw it into here, everything should have been shifted up slightly, which isn't... The only annoying part about that is now we have our... Okay, the very annoying part about that is now we have to redo the colliders. I think that's fine, I guess. But... The chair's still in the correct position. I think I like it there, so we'll leave that. The coat rack, as compared to the shadow, it needs to go down, I think. So we're going to move the shadow into place. And then move the coat rack down. And then make the capsule collider overlap correctly, like so. And then we want this to be on the first sorting layer. With this couch, we're going to want it to slide down a little bit. And then we're going to want to set it on the layer 1, and the collider will extend upwards a little bit more than this. For this couch and this table, we're going to move them both downwards just a little bit, and also the rug. And this collider clearly needs to go up a little bit. And we're going to make sure that the collider gives a little bit of a depth kind of illusion to it. So, and then we'll do this. And for all of these guys, not the candle. We don't actually care about the candle. For all of these guys, we want them to sort by pivot. And then if we look at that, I don't like having the table like on there, so we're gonna go negative 6.5 and negative 5.5. Sure. And then we're just gonna move these down a little bit. And then this is gonna be negative 3.5. And then negative 3.5. Should it be a little bit lower? I feel like maybe it should. Let's do that. And then we're going to move these both a little further out. And again, disorder. We're not looking for anything perfect. In fact, it should like be a little bit annoying to look at. And then like a random chair in the middle of the room, I guess, which is funny. Let's not use it as an obstruction. I guess that could work, but like at the same time, I think some things should just be unexplainably there. All right, and now just taking a look at everything. The coat rack is incorrect. It should be sorting differently than that, so we're going to fix that. We're going to click the rack and make it sort correctly. Sort from pivot. Yes, let's go. All right, and now it should be working correctly. And honestly, I might just move it up a little bit so that you can actually go around it and see for sure. And that'll be negative 9.5 and negative 2.5. Just keeping it on the grid as much as possible, or at least half points on the grid. That works. And there are ways to get around all of the things, so I feel like that's cool. Except for this couch. Maybe there's like a puzzle where you have to kind of like move it. I don't know. This random chair is never really explained. I think that we need to restrict the boundaries on it a little bit more though, so that people don't accidentally go through the pivot. All right, let's try this. So there is the problem that I can kind of like shove down. So we're gonna fix that. And another thing that I'm going to do is we actually don't want this to be static. I think it would be really funny to have a little bit of... It would be cool if we could like, I don't know, make it so you could push these things around just a little bit. I don't like that though, because it kind of betrays perspective. So we're gonna lock the certain rotations. We don't want it to rotate along the z-axis. I guess z is the only axis that matters in this case. So let's go ahead and save that and do it one more time. I also want it to feel like a chair. If you do push it around, it should take... Oh. some time, at the very least. Let's just mess with it inside of Unity here, and yeah, let's see. If we give it like a mass of 1,220, we get closer to the desired effect. Let's try 900. Let's do 600. Let's do 400. And I'm kind of just like lowering this because I want it to be somewhat easy to push, but still like give you a little bit of resistance. And linear dampening, let's set that to like 100. In that case, we're going to want like the mass to be 1. 3. 4. So that looks like scooting. I like that. We're going to then copy all of this stuff and put it back in here. And save. So this chair kind of feels like an actual chair, which is good. I wonder if there's a way to make like a squealing chair sound whenever it's being pushed around. That could be really funny. I don't really want the chair to be able to leave the area. I don't know. We'll just leave it there for now. All right. That's good. As far as like what else to add here, I don't feel like any of these other things should really have to move, to be honest. There's no reason for it. Let's just leave that. And this is kind of like a crossroads area. So let's... I feel like the carpet would have to be larger than that. We're going to actually give this place like a table. And it's going to be at 20, 14, and I don't know. Does it really need anything else? I don't think so. We'll sort out the pivot, and we're going to give it a capsule collider 2D, because those generally are just more flexible circle colliders, apparently. And then we're going to set it horizontal, and set the boundary, like, right here. Or actually, we're going to expand it a little bit upwards, so that way, again, more freedom of movement. And we're going to give it a rigid body that does not move. And then, of course, chairs have to go with that. So we're going to set all of the pivot modes, rigid body, 2D. I really don't think these should move really either. It's kind of unnecessary. And then I'm going to copy this over and just flip it across the x-axis and put it on the other side. And again, it really shouldn't be perfect, so we are going to move it downwards and a little bit closer to the table. And then, of course, we could just copy over this object over here, move it here. Although maybe we like flip it across the x-axis. Is there a way to like flip this across the x-axis? I have an idea. Maybe we like just scale it to be -1. That does the same thing, but it also flips the colliders. Maybe that'll work. And now what else do we need? I feel like carpet underneath, floor. Set that to floor 1. And let's just take a look. I might honestly wrap up after this. We got a lot of good stuff done for as far as decoration goes. I feel like this chair should be further away from the table. Because, you know, it was pushed over. Yeah, let's do that. And I feel like we could have another cutscene over here. If you get closer to the walls, Nostal could say something like, Holmes, the candles are still burning. And then that kind of like is a clue in itself that people are still there. So it feels like a mystery. Let's do that. So we're going to want another cutscene. We're going to name it Candle Observation. And then we're going to create a playable director. And then we're going to create a cutscene game state. And then it goes straight back to the overworld game state afterwards. There's no like fighting that's happening at this point. And we're going to want to create, of course, a new playable asset here. So that's going to be timeline assets. And I'm going to create a folder called manor so we can actually hold it in a place that makes sense. We want all the cutscenes that happen in the manor to be held in the manor. Timeline, timeline, candle observation. All right. What else? Let's throw that into here. And now we're just going to edit this timeline. And we're probably going to trigger it to like focus. We're going to trigger it to happen right here. So at this point, we're going to want to have an animation track for the camera target. I guess I have to be like actually focused on the state in question. So let's do that. And then we're going to take the camera target and put it into here. And all that we're going to want to do here is we're going to want to focus the camera target kind of like on this thing here. Okay. And then it's going to be at 9 and negative 2.5. And then it's going to start some dialogue with Nostal that's just like all about, let's see here. That's going to be all about how the candles are still burning. So now we're going to want a signal receiver. Well, actually, we could just take care of that separately. We're going to add a signal emitter. Throw that. Why is that in the what? That's in the animator? What? That is so random. We're going to emit the signal start dialog. And the candle observation itself is going to receive the signal. We're going to add a reaction, and it's going to be the cutscene game state, stop, and start dialog. And I'm going to lock this inspector, and in this inspector, we're going to set up the new dialog. And I'm just going to name it candle observation. Then the candle observation is going to be Nostal. And I'm using player notation here to represent the player's given name. We'll actually fix that later. It could only mean one thing. And I think that he should come to a totally false conclusion in the name of comedy. I don't know. What would you say? What's the conclusion you come to when it comes to candles that has nothing to do with the fact that there's someone else in the manor? They were lit recently. It can only mean one thing. Well, what can it mean, Nostal? What can it mean? Uh, we need a Nostal. I'm trying to. I don't want to overthink. Hold on, maybe I should overthink this because when it comes to Nostal, he's trying to be as great a detective as the main character. Okay. So I don't want to bring ghosts into it because that doesn't miss the conclusion enough because that is an explanation, I guess. I want it to be like a totally disconnected explanation. Like uh those candles, they were lit recently. It can only mean one thing. Now we're gonna do some research really quick. Were candles common in era of Sherlock Holmes? I'm not exactly being subtle with this. Essential in the Victorian era. Okay, so it's an upper class standard at times. Some of them use cheaper tallow candles made from animal fat. The cost of wax is a major household concern. This is interesting. Okay, so because of their heavy reliance on portable illumination, the phrase not worth the candle was a common Victorian idiom describing any task or game that wasn't worth the expense of lighting the room to play it. That's actually really cool. It can only mean one thing. Hold on, hold on. What's the word that means like meaning? Filled with synonyms. No, I'm looking for the word. Is likely probably has a large wax bill to pay. How could I emphasize that with Victorian English here? I need to like research this now. Let's see. Where are you, Chrome? Here you are. Oh, you're not Chrome. You're Firefox. What am I doing? Victorian dialect guide. How do you do? Pray, good sir. Mind the grease. Okay, I need to find like a actual. an actual guide here. Yeah, this is it. This is the only game design channel where you will run into someone who is looking up Victorian words. British Empire, Chinese junk, charcoal, cesspool, census, celebrated, well-known, famous, caters force, coach, commencement, consequence. And consequence of means because of. Okay, recovering from an illness. Man, I'm trying to find something here. Economy, cheapness, en route along the way, enfeebled, epidemic, extent facilitating, ferry, fertility, fever, fever-stricken, flu. This is not even Old English. Furtherance. This is gruel, guinea. Man, none of these words are what I'm looking for. Gee. I'm just gonna leave this. We'll deal with it later. A hefty wax bill every year. That's good enough for now. Okay, now we're just gonna get back into it. And we're gonna give the candle observation as our dialogue. And that's gonna be inside of this timeline, which is it basically immediately. But of course we need to actually like set up the zone so that it triggers correctly. So we're gonna go ahead and create a zone down in this breaking point here. And we're going to set a box collider 2D to be the zone that triggers the dialogue. All right, and zooming it down a little bit. This is a trigger that's connected to a rigid body 2D. Set it all as static. So when it walks through here, the script here is going to trigger a cutscene in which Nostau talks about the burning candles and what it means in the context of this mystery. So this is going to be the game state. Switch to game state on enter, and we're going to switch into the candle observation state. With that, I think that this should work. Let's go ahead and start the script. Now, if I walk through here, ideally Nostau is going to... Not yet, Nostau. Oh my gosh. No, we want to wait until after we get to that point. So we're not going to play on awake. We're going to play when it's triggered. So when we walk through that hallway, Nostau is going to comment on the candles, and he's going to bring up a good point that should make the player think like, oh, wait, someone's probably here. They can only mean one thing. The property owner plays a hefty wax bill every year. He's totally missing the point. I hope that's very clear and apparent and whatever. But it's meant to get the player thinking along one line while showing that Nostau's really just not in the same place at all. To be honest, he's just more... He's kind of just in his own world. All right, and now we're going to set the cutscene end here. And when we restart, it should relinquish control back to the player so we can walk around and continue exploring afterwards. And we walk over here. Look, those candles, they were lit recently. It can only mean one thing. The property owner probably pays a hefty wax bill every year. And then it goes back into our control. That's exactly what we want. There is the problem, however, that these cutscenes re-trigger, which is unfortunately not what we're looking for. we're going to want to make sure that it does not retrigger. Or at least it doesn't retrigger unless we want it to. So let's go ahead and get that figured out. So if we go over to the candle observation game state here, well, actually, this wouldn't be the script responsible for taking care of that. It would be the switch on game state enter here, yeah. When it comes to this script, we're going to have a Boolean that you can set. Private bool retrigger. And then we're going to have a private bool triggered equals false. And I'm going to say triggered is equal to true. And so we're going to add one more check here. And false or retrigger. Cool. If it's not triggered, or if it is triggered, but we're allowing it to retrigger, all of this will be true. So, long story, but in a few short sentences, this will stop the cutscenes from retriggering unless we absolutely want them to. So let's go ahead and actually, I also want retrigger to be default set to false. And going back into Unity. Cool, and now we just start with all of this stuff. And when we start the game, move up. Those candles that were lit recently, one thing, the property owner probably pays a hefty bill on wax. And now we can walk through without any interruptions. That's exactly what we want. That is exactly what we want, chat. All right, so this is a lot of good stuff. Although we have one small issue, this cutscene, it needs to be saved across room swaps. So we're going to have to work on the save system a little bit to make this consistent. But yeah, this will be my final kind of moment of playthrough. All right. Well, I think that that's all for today's stream. We got a lot of decoration going inside of the rooms here, which we'll probably do more at some point. Yeah, I don't know. I think that that's all for today. Thank you guys for joining us. This is the Games Afoot. It's a RPG game that is in the style of Paper Mario and older Super Nintendo games. Please consider joining our Discord to get stream notifications and also get to hang out with creators and game nerds and all of that stuff. And yeah, thanks for joining us today. Peace out, guys.